KC Laboratory. Sponsored by Emprise Bank.
It's the KC Laboratory live, presented by Emprise Bank. Whether you're borrowing for today or saving for tomorrow, Emprise is your partner in possible. Just think of them as your Chad Henne the last time the Chiefs played the Browns. Emprise Bank member FDIC, so appreciative of them and all they've done for KC Sports Network. And I am excited to do a one-take show with my dear pals. First, find them on Twitter at Chief in Carolina. Maddie Lane, it is game week. We made it.
Yes, we did. And Kent, here's something you don't know. In the Discord, me and some of our fellow KCSM subscribers had a little bet going on which intro you would use for Emprise Bank. The alarming amount of people you would have the Chad Henne one for this first game, this first week coming at you. Craig, I'm sure you're not surprised. I don't think there was any better read than this. So, I mean, do you have any other options that he could have possibly gone with?
No. I mean, you could have dunked on the Browns harder, but I mean, Chad Henne did that enough. So I think we're good with that Emprise read there. Guys, it's week one. We are here. Our long national Chiefs nightmare is over. we can hit the reset button from last season officially and get into the regular season. I'm so excited to be talking football with you guys, football that matters, football that will count against a record. It's good. It's so great. Let's get to it, man. Let's just do this.
All right. So last year we did some prop bets. So and this was a lot of fun for us. We had a great time doing it. We're going to go ahead and just run through some of those again. Like these are all Chiefs specific. But of course, this is a Chiefs podcast. So let's go ahead and just start running through these. We're going to start
last year. I'm going to win again. I'm going to get the majority of these correct, just like last year.
Did we ever go back and tally them?
I did. I won. You can come by and check my work later, but I definitely won. It was a landslide victory. Actually, it was wild. You would think that we would have all been on the same page a little bit more, but no, we weren't.
We do tend to agree a lot. Like there are some people that are like often disappointed in us for agreeing too much. But let's start with Patrick Mahomes over under 4,525 yards this season, Craig.
What? That's low. Are you kidding me? Are we playing 2 less games than we were before? I'm hammering the over on this. I mean, I know that Mahomes has undergone some injuries the past couple of years that has limited some of his offensive output, but this man will be behind the best offensive line that he has ever had, probably ever in his football playing career. So I think that the sky is the limit. I think that additional game on there makes this an easy over for me to hammer.
Yeah, I feel like that's wildly low right now, unless this is predicting. I thought the odds are a little bit higher when I had checked. So like seeing it that low, yeah, I would be all over that if I was a betting man.
All right, sweep it. Take the over. All right, touchdowns for Patrick Mahomes, 39.5 the over under. What we got here?
I think this is another pretty easy hard over. I mean, the extra game this year, I think that already gives you a little bit of a runway to no matter if the Chiefs are sitting in the 1 seed or if they are going to be playing through the final week of the season, there's going to be an extra chance for Patrick Mahomes to play a game. That extra game easily is going to put him over to even a bad year. I think that puts him, he's going to be over 40 here. I think it's too low as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we can make as much as we want to about wide receiver 2 and the weapons that Patrick Mahomes is going to have. He's still going to throw over 40 touchdowns. Like, I don't think that there's a way that he doesn't throw over 40 touchdowns this season. So hard over.
This line might be a little bit better than you guys think. And maybe it's because we are just so in awe of the 50 touchdowns that he had his first year as a starter. But Patrick Mahomes has not broke 39.5 more than once. That 1 year, his MVP season, was the only year.
Best offensive line he's ever played behind now. And an extra game.
I'm just telling you, it may be closer than you think, but I'm still taking the over.
Okay.
Well, okay, but even if you go back to the last year, if he plays one more game on the pace he played, he breaks it. So you have to, I just think immediately factoring in the game, not even an increase in performance.
But
just
it's
the pace of touchdowns per game that he had last year, he definitely would break it again. So
it's close though. That's what's interesting. It's 40-41 if we extrapolate last year. That's why it's a great line. I'm just telling you, it's a little bit better than you think. I personally believe he's going scorched earth. That's my opinion. I'm still taking the over, but it's a nice line. It's a better line than we think. All right, Maddie, you threw this one in, and this isn't something you can find out there on Vegas, but I like it. Game-winning drives for this football team, over/under set at 2.5.
And I want to clarify real quick, just this because this is not an official line. Let's say that this game-winning drive has to happen in the final 4 minutes of the fourth quarter. Like, so at the end of the game, this essentially has to be a go-ahead touchdown while trailing late in the fourth quarter.
Sure, go for it.
Okay. And the Chiefs have a tougher schedule this year. Like, there's no lie. There's a lot of games that they could be mixed up in it. But as the defensive guy, I don't see that there's any way that Patrick Mahomes is going to need to come back that often at the end of the game. So I'm hitting the under on this with an improved defense, an improved rushing attack that can take the air out of the ball and close out some games. Nah, I'm saying under.
I think I'm gonna go. I think I'll go with the. I'm gonna go the over just to be different than Craig because we need to start Well, look, we're trying to compete here a little bit because Maddie apparently went back and like double checked to make sure if he won. So now we've got to try to take things into consideration. We're tied through 2. We got to split some things up here. Give me the over. I'll say 3 game-winning drives for this football team.
I'm going to go with the under as well here. I think for the majority of the reasons that Craig said, I don't think the Chiefs will be in a position, especially that late in the fourth. If you want to go by, I think it's Pro Football Reference's definition, it's just the fourth quarter. And if it was all of the fourth quarter, I think it'd be a lot closer. But like when I think game-winning drives, I'm thinking late in the fourth. I don't think the Chiefs are going to be trailing enough games late in the fourth for it to happen. Would love to see it. Would love to see more Patrick Mahomes game-winning drives. I think it'd be a lot of fun, but I'm going with the under right now.
I was thinking about this the other day because we don't really appreciate it very much. We don't like to talk about the 2018 AFC Championship loss to the Patriots. I know, but for everything that happened in that game, Patrick Mahomes had like 35 seconds to drive down the field and get him into field goal range, and he did it.
Mm-hmm.
We forget how ridiculous that was. I mean, and honestly, like again, this man has one loss, one score loss. And this man is always keeping this team close. But like, gosh, I just had to remember. I just sat back.
All of that wiped away by Bob Sutton. Bob Sutton, ruiner of Patrick Mahomes.
We don't really need to go there either. This is a lot of scars just coming out. We forgive you.
Hear that,
Bob.
guys? Quit coming at my guy D Ford. It's clearly Bob Sutton's fault, according to Craig. Leave poor D Ford alone.
Listen, that overtime defense. That's not all D Ford. Yikes.
All right, Travis Kelce. This will be fun. Over under 1,300.5 yards for Travis Kelce. I'm going to take the under, and I don't love it. I think it's another good line. I could see him missing a couple games this year. He's starting to kind of be on that tail end a little bit. This man's been remarkably healthy. Hopefully that can sustain, but I mean, he's getting older down there. Maybe he misses a couple more games. Maybe there may be a little bit more maintenance there for him. So give me the under.
How many games has Travis Kelce missed due to injury since his rookie year?
2.
Kent.
Okay.
2. Okay. I was just curious.
I'm telling you, this is a vibe. This is just how I feel.
How many people are going to be taking targets away from Travis Kelce?
They kept 4 tight ends.
Even less than they had before. Travis Kelce is your de facto X receiver. Like, you thought that he got volume before. He's getting volume now. He had 1,400 yards last year in 15 games. Like, now you're adding 2 more games. Ideally, the Chiefs only have to play 1 more because I have some stuff locked up. But I don't foresee a step back for Travis Kelce in this season. I just don't. I think that he's just aging like a fine wine. He just keeps getting better. I'm taking the over.
Craig stole my aging like fine wine line that I had teed up. I'm really upset right now.
Hey, Craig, where can you get wine? And where should KC be looking to get wine?
No, listen, you know where I can't get wine in Kansas City? Macadoodles. And you know where I should be able to get wine in Kansas City? Is Macadoodles. We need one of these in Kansas City right this very moment. If you are a franchisee, you need to get on this. Email roger@macadoodles.com. Get one to Kansas City, because every single time that I hear from somebody that goes to Macadoodles, they are pleased with the customer service, with the prices, the selection, and they want to go back as often as possible. It's basically like printing money if you get yourself a Macadoodles in the Kansas City area. So do that right here and now. It's printing money, just like it's printing money if you take the over on Travis Kelce at 1,300 yards. My goodness, just an awfully low line.
Sounds like free money to me as well. Patrick Mahomes spent all offseason talking about how they're working on the quick game. Travis Kelce's only playing better and better, apparently, as he gets deeper and deeper into the league. Yes, losing Sammy Watkins, I do think will shift a little bit more attention onto Travis Kelce. But one, you're giving him an extra game. Two, I do think the Chiefs are going to try to play a little bit quicker, play a little bit more underneath. That's going to feed right into Travis Kelce's wheelhouse. I do see him being the primary target in terms of yardage, receptions for this team this year.
And I feel like we had this conversation last year when I tried to disagree with you guys.
Yeah, you wished injury upon him last year too due to old age.
I think there's this perception here that now I think he's going to get 900 yards. It's like, I think he's going to get like 1,250. God forbid.
Imagine being such a hater. Imagine.
Touchdowns for Travis Kelce. The over-under is set at 10.5.
This is actually a good line. Like, I'm actually good with this line because, I mean, he had 11 last year. He had 8 the year before. I mean, the variance on that is a little bit iffy. We have seen times where Andy Reid hasn't forced the ball to Travis Kelce in the red zone, a lot of moving between the 20s. And I do think that we're going to see a little bit more heavy personnel in the red zone when they can kind of line up and boss teams around a little bit. That means we're going to see some more passes to guys like Blake Bell. We're going to see some more jet motion to McCole Hardman, and we're going to see more Clyde Edwards-Helaire maybe poaching some touchdowns. I actually think that this one, I'm going to take the under, but it's not because I believe that Travis Kelce isn't a machine down there. I just think that the volume is going to go other places.
Craig has stolen my cheat sheet here. He knows that I won last year, and he's just taking all my answers. So I was also.
So how am I stealing them?
You stole my cheat sheet. You came out here and you took it from right underneath my table. I'm going with the under as well. I think, as we'll get to later on in these, I think the Chiefs' run game is going to be a lot better in the red zone. So I think you are going to lose some red zone receiving touchdown opportunities to the run game being better. I do think there's a reason the Chiefs have multiple tight ends on the roster. I think they do see, we already saw the 14 personnel show up. I'm not saying it'll be 14 personnel again, but I think you're going to see some fun stuff done with multiple tight ends on the field. I think you're going to see a lot of schemed, chances for Burton or for Noah Gray, Jody Forts, and Blake Bell, all these different guys. I unfortunately do think that Travis Kelce's touchdown total might dip down closer to what his career average has been rather than, last year's 11, I think was probably a career high for him. It sounds like it probably was.
Wow, you guys are such haters. What is
you
your
wished
problem
on him? What are you talking about?
What is your problem? Imagine not thinking Travis Kelce in the red zone isn't going to find 11 touchdowns this year. Give me the over. Look, yes, maybe some of the design may not always be, Travis Kelce's the prime target. But one thing I know is Patrick Mahomes finds Travis Kelce when plays break down in the red zone. He is creative. He loves to give Travis Kelce opportunities. It may not always be by design, but I think Travis Kelce, give me the over. Y'all worried about yards. I'm worried about scoring here. All right, let's talk about Tyreek Hill. The over under set at 1,350 yards and 1/2 yard. 1,350 and a half.
That sounds like a good over to me. I think Tyreek Hill is going to be I think he's going to have a little bit less, not attention directed to him, but I think the Chiefs are going to do a better job scheming him open this year. I think he's clearly still their biggest threat downfield. He's clearly their biggest threat on the outside. I do think the Chiefs are going to try a little bit less volume in terms of throwing deep, but I think the efficiency will be up there. For as good as Tyreek Hill has been as a deep threat, and we know how good Patrick Mahomes can be throwing the ball downfield, I do think him and Tyreek Hill do miss quite a bit on just straight vertical shot plays. So I'm hoping they connect on a few more this year, and I'll take Tyreek Hill going over 1,350 yards.
And see, he's done that once in his career, and it's the only time that he's actually played all 16 games for the Chiefs. So you're betting on Tyreek Hill being healthy basically the entire season. With that said, I'm going to take the under. Be a little different from Maddie here. I think defenses are going to opt to take away that deep threat, and I think especially if Mecole Hardman gets a lot of snaps, you're going to see a lot of too high safeties, a lot of taking away the deep ball, which is going to open some stuff up for the underneath routes, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Travis Kelce, yada, yada. So I think that like Maddie said, his volume might go down a little bit. Now, he's still going to hit on some of them. I think he's going to be really close to this line, but I'm going to take just under that line. Unfortunately, I would love to see him bounce out to 1,600 yards this season. That would be awesome.
Yeah, give me the over. I feel good about feel good about this, even if he does miss one game. This guy's ultra productive, and I'll take the over. Touchdowns 10.5 for Tyreek Hill as well, Maddie or Craig. Sorry, go Craig. You go, Craig.
Oh yeah, that's right. I'm taking this. Yeah, no, this is where the over is. We have seen repeatedly Tyreek Hill get a lot of these speed outs, get a lot of these option plays, these jet motions, getting him into space where he can really work a DB in the red zone. We've seen him used a little more often than we've seen Travis Kelce. And we do know that he can take the top off of the defense. If you get him into space, he's probably scoring that thing. So I am taking the over.
I think for Tyreek Hill and touchdowns, I'm going to take the over as well on this one. I think the big thing is, one, he's going to get a couple long ones every year. He's probably going to get a one or two where he's just running after the catch. And then the Chiefs oddly have found a way to make him a really good red zone target. They find a good job of either getting him as a hot read against blitz and just kind of racing to the corner. They've sent him on some of those deep overs across the back line of the end zone or to the opposite pylon. They've done a really good job getting him involved. And I do think he's a better red zone kind of target than people give him credit for. Plus, and this is really what put me over the top, Tyreek Hill's apparently taller now than he was in the past, and according to his Twitter. So fade passes all day, according to Tyreek Hill's Twitter.
Oh, my Lord.
He's an ex-receiver now. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, this is a great question.
Go, Maddie.
Marshall Sheets. Thanks for sending this in. Thanks for watching, bud. We appreciate it. Which Chiefs players have a slower three-cone time than Ken Swanson? I'll tell you guys. Unfortunately, my only answer actually ended up not getting signed to the Chiefs practice squad. Benito Jones was the only guy I could have come up with like I think it was like an 8-2-3 cone or something like that. That's the only guy I think I could come up with that might be slower.
Him, Kent, and Orlando Brown in a barn burner for a three-cone right there.
If I'm not mistaken, Benito Jones had a slower three-cone than Orlando Brown. That's why I went with him.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the over on Tyreek Hill touchdowns. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, all-purpose yards. I'm assuming this is all-purpose yards. 1,275.5 for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Give me the over. If I remember correctly, Craig, and you probably have the exact stat up ready, but if Clyde Edwards-Helaire had played a complete 16 games last year, he eclipses this by a lot. I don't know if he actually wound up getting over this number last year, but I feel good about Clyde Edwards-Helaire's outlook. I think, with no lock solid wide receiver too, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a guy that could really be one of the benefactors of this situation that we really don't talk enough about.
Yeah. Clyde was actually at 1,100 yards in 13 games last year.
Wow.
So yeah, that's actually a pretty good clip. And we saw that the Chiefs were really ramping him up. He actually was eased in. We saw him used a little bit, especially in that early Ravens game. He was really maximized. And then we saw him kind of take a little bit of a dip as he was learning the offense and so forth and so on. So we saw it coming back up, especially in that New Orleans Saints game where he got a little bit hurt. So I think he would have easily eclipsed this last year with the offensive line last year and the lack of screens that team ran. I mean, they obviously didn't trust that backup offensive line to run the screens to the extent that Andy Reid typically does. We've seen it already in the preseason here. They've been leaning on him. They've been using him a lot. I'm taking the over on this just because I think he's going to be the biggest beneficiary of this offensive line.
Well, Kent hates Travis Kelce. Craig hates Tyreek Hill, and it's my turn to step up to the plate. I'm going with the under for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I don't like it, but my only rationale is this. I think Darrell Williams did a really good job last year. I think he played better than the Chiefs or anybody would have imagined. I think Jerick McKinnon has been quite the surprise, looking a lot closer to his old self during the preseason and a little bit during training camp. I'm wondering how much these guys might eat into Clyde Edwards-Helaire's just overall snap count. Like, will they get more chances? Will they get some of these screen opportunities? Will they be getting some more opportunities than we maybe thought as of a couple months ago? So I am going to take the under on that. It's not a ton of yards. He was on pace to do it last year, but I don't think the competition was as stiff last year for touches because I think, like I said, Darrell Williams came on strong when he got the opportunities. I think Jerick McKinnon's better than any other running back we had here last year to be the third guy. So I think there might be a few less opportunities this season.
I do think sometimes Clyde Edwards-Helaire is in the mix because I think they like to use him against man coverage a little bit more. And I feel like some of Andy's best plays to kind of spring Clyde Edwards-Helaire last year were some of the man looks. And, teams don't really play a lot of man against this team. Clyde Edwards-Helaire touchdowns, the over-under is set at 7.5.
I see. I'm going back now. Now we're going with the over. I'm coming in. I think Clyde's going to be the red zone back. I know Darrell Williams makes the obvious choice just given his size, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire got the opportunities last year when he was healthy. I think behind this offensive line, especially once he starts to gel with it, he will be, I talked about it earlier with Travis Kelce's red zone touchdowns. I think the rushing game is going to be more important in the red zone this year. I'll take the over on the touchdowns. I just don't know if you'll have the yardage to go with it.
Yeah, over for all the same reasons that Maddie put there. I think they're going to run a little bit more smash mouth near the red zone. I think they're going to clear some bodies out of the way. And we saw at LSU, Clyde was very good in those sorts of situations. I mean, you can still stretch teams out and run smash mouth in the red zone. You get these guys, try and compact everything, keep the receivers, kind of gloved up a little bit on the back end. That's primarily when you want Clyde Edwards-Helaire having to go against a linebacker, setting up those jukes all the way in the backfield and being able to hit the hole that's already predetermined because it'll be a gap scheme run, and he'll be able to hit that hard, punch it in for a touchdown.
All right, let's talk about wide receiver 2. And I believe we have an over-under here on 725.5 yards. Basically, I'm guessing this is just any receiver, any wide receiver classified as a wide receiver hitting an over-under of 725 yards outside of Tyreek Hill. Craig, what do you like here?
I'm going to go under just because I think it's going to be a group of guys. It's not going to be any singular one person that's going to be able to step up and do that. I fully believe that Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be third on the team in receiving yards. I've said that several times this season. I think they're going to maximize him, particularly in the screen game, particularly when they do see those man occurrences, which isn't often, but maximize him in that way. That means there's not a ton of targets to go around, especially if they're going to play more 12 personnel as well. You're going to see a lot more tight end targets as well. So I just think that between McCole Hardman, Demarcus Robinson, Byron Pringle, I think they're going to just kind of split those up plenty. And so I just don't think any guy is going to get to this individual mark. Now, if the over-under was how many receivers get above, let's call it 550 yards receiving, I might take the over on that just because I think you're going to get a lot of guys that are going to be above that mark, but not quite get to that 700-plus mark.
How many wide receivers go over 550 yards, Greg?
Oh, we're talking just receivers, not
just wide
Clyde
receivers.
Edwards-Helaire. I'm going to say Tyreek Hill, McCole Hardman, Demarcus Robinson. That's it. So I'm going to take 3. I'm going to take 3.
So as far as 726 yards to get the over for this, Sammy Watkins came the closest over the last, I think, under Andy Reid actually as the number 2 wide receiver in 2019. He didn't play a full year. So if he played the full year, he would have eclipsed it, but he ended up, I think, at like 670 some yards. So essentially we're asking, is somebody going to play as good as 2019 Sammy Watkins when he was healthy this year? Is one player going to play that good as your wide receiver 2? I have a hard time believing it. I really do. I do think McCole Hardman makes it interesting because a big game from McCole Hardman can very easily be 175 plus yards because he's got that kind of speed to catch multiple deep passes in one game, which rack up the yards insane amount. It's the consistency factor that's always got him in trouble. Is he ready to be a consistent week in and week out threat? Because I don't think he's getting to 725 yards by a big game, once every quarter of the season. So I'm going to go with the under until I see a little bit more consistency. I do think Harden's the only receiver that has a chance, though, at that number.
100% agree. He's it. That's it. This is the only other guy outside of Tyreek Hill, I think, that can actually come close to achieving that number. The ceiling's there. The consistency just simply hasn't to this point in his career. I'm not believing 726 out of anybody outside of Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. Maybe Clyde gets, Clyde might be second in the, he might be third in receiving yards. Wouldn't be stunned by that because I do think there's a chance he gets a little bit more involved this year. All right, this isn't an over-under. This is more just let's just kind of talk about it. Mahomes to break the touchdown record at 16-1. Do we like those odds, Maddie?
The odds are good, yes. Would I put money on it? I don't think so. I think the touchdown record's really, really high right now. And I think we've talked about enough times to this. I think the Chiefs are not going to be having to air the ball out to score a touchdown every single drive like they have in the past. Like anytime you're going for this kind of record, you would need to. I think the run game, the offensive line will be too good for that. So I don't think it's a smart bet generally to take. But I mean, at 16-1, those sound like pretty good odds. If you were going to bet on someone to do it, I might as well be Patrick Mahomes at this clip.
Bob Sutton's defense isn't on the other side here. I mean, that's realistically what this is. I don't think Mahomes is going to have to put it on teams as much as it is. And we know that Andy Reid, when it hits, late third quarter, if the Chiefs are up big, he's not going to take the risks. And he might even pull some guys a little bit earlier just because this season, adding another game, not adding another bye week, the attrition might add up a little bit more. So he might rest some guys. He might pull the reins back a little bit. So I wouldn't take this bet personally. 55 touchdowns is a lot. So I just don't think that we're going to see that this year.
Yeah, there's some indicators on defense too that makes me want to believe this team's going to be a little bit more balanced than what we've seen in the past. And we'll get there in a second. But I threw this one in there. This isn't a Vegas line. This is just one I threw in there. Week 1 offensive line. How many games do they play together this season? The over/under I set at 12.5. Could be injury. Could be a lot of different things. How many does this week 1 group play together? I am taking. I like this line I set. I think I'm going to take the over. I have a little bit more confidence that Lucas Niang is going to hold on to that gig a little bit longer. I think the only thing that, maybe gets Kyle Long into the mix a little bit quicker is out of necessity. And that's an injury thing. But I'm buying this team, sticking together up front. Give me the week 1 offensive line playing together over 12.5 times this year.
Yeah, I'm going to go with over as well. Part of the nice thing about having young offensive linemen is they don't get hurt quite as often as some of the older guys. That's not knocking any of the older guys. No. I'm an older guy. I get hurt when I walk outside. It happens. So, I mean, I think that we're going to see a lot more cohesion. Joe Thuney is a rock, just doesn't miss games. Orlando Brown is a fairly healthy individual as well. And then you've got a bunch of young guys on the other side. Lucas Niang, I think, is the real question mark there because I think that Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith are both going to play basically 16 games. If Lucas Niang can stay healthy all season long, I think Andy Reid wants him to be the right tackle because he wants this to be the offensive line of the future. And so he needs that cohesion. He needs those reps. So I'm going to say over.
Yeah, this almost seems like are we anticipating somebody being injured kind of question? I know it's not because the right tackle position isn't entirely settled. I will say the way that the Chiefs have kind of handled training camp down the stretch since Mike Rimmers has come back, it really does seem like Lucas Niang is your starting right tackle. Like it's no longer, I don't even know how bad he would have to play to get replaced. I think it would have to be quite bad. He hasn't been getting any left tackle work. Andrew Wiley hasn't been getting left tackle work. Literally, Mike Rimmers is your left tackle. It's going to be hard to back up left tackle. It's going to be hard to insert him into a starting position. So unless we're dealing with injuries or it is a COVID year, so, in case we're dealing with some of that stuff coming out, I'm going to take the over because it's just going to be too hard to predict injuries, I think.
Oh, B. Hudson, great question here. Odds that Brett Veach trades for a wide receiver too. Craig, do you like the odds on this?
I don't personally. I think we would have seen it by now. I really do. Like I think if they were going to make a move, they would have made it. We've heard, even Sammy Watkins, a guy that is a very, very smart wide receiver, talked about that it took him some time to get integrated, to understand everything and the levels to Andy Reid's offense. You don't just pick guys off the street and say, okay, you're in now, let's go. So I think that's why you see a lot of guys like Demarcus Robinson continue to be brought in, because it is hard to teach the offense. So no, I don't think that we're going to see a wide receiver 2 brought in, because they just haven't yet.
Yeah, I think the timing would be a little bit weird. However, I think there's been some rumors of certain guys being out there. Brandon Cooks jumps to mind to be a guy that, when the Texans are undoubtedly a dumpster fire coming up on the trade deadline, if the Chiefs aren't getting the production out of their other wide receivers that they want, calling up Houston, seeing what they want. If you included either signing a free agent directly to your 53-man roster or making a trade, I would take it. I would say they will by the end of the season. I mean, that includes like a John Brown. I think there's some other guys that were let go that are still available right now. So I do think they will turn over the wide receiver position throughout the season. It's going to be hard to say it's definitely going to be a trade.
All right. One team, AJ Green. Let's see what happens to AJ Green if the Cardinals are out of contention. That's one guy I would keep an eye on and see if he's even got anything left, honestly. If he has anything left, they might be good anyway. So this might be a moot point. All right, let's jump to defense and look at Tyrann Mathieu over under 4.5 interceptions.
I mean, I gotta take the over on this. I have to. Tyrann had 6 last year. He had 4 the year before, and probably should have had 9. And he will admit it. He will. So
he did.
Yeah, he did. He did. I mean, I think that Tyrann Mathieu is going to be there week 1. I don't think that there's any question about that. And we know that Steve Spagnuolo uses him in ways that he doesn't use other players on this defense. He drops him and sinks him into areas of the field that quarterbacks like to throw, robs routes that quarterbacks have a tendency to throw to, and then move him around like a chess piece. So in that regard, he's going to end up with a lot of them. He's going to be around the ball a lot. I am taking the over on this because you're giving him another game to do it. So easy over for me.
I'm taking the over as well. I think that he's shown he very clearly still has a knack for the football. The way Steve Spagnuolo uses him is absolutely phenomenal. They will, even when he looks like he's playing a deep half, they constantly have him sliding into kind of that robber role. It's almost like he's playing, it's such a high robber too. It's almost like he's playing the middle of post on like a Tampa 2 type coverage, but from the deep safety. And he's got such good eyes. He's so good from that position. You add on his ability to just make plays over the top, underneath. I think it's an easy thing to get sucked in and take the over. Not that having 5 interceptions is easy. It just looks so enticing because of how many times he gets his hands on the football.
Sweep it for, so I'm taking the over there. Frank Clark, 7.5 sacks. The over under there, Matty.
Yikes. I'm gonna go with the I'm gonna go with the under here. I don't like it. I don't feel good about it. He barely was under last year. You know what? No, I'm changing. I'm going the over. He was barely under last year. We know he was playing at like 206 pounds. Like, he's got on a little bit more weight. I'm not going to predict that he's going to miss time based on the off-field incidents. I'm not going to predict an injury. I just can't go into it thinking that. I think he's going to get a lot more favorable looks with Jared Reed, Derek Nottie eating up guys up the middle, Chris Jones across from him. I think he will get more actual one-on-one opportunities, not ESPN plus tracking stat one-on-one opportunities that don't really tell any story, but like true straight up one-on-one opportunities. I think he'll get over 7.5 sacks again.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that Matty was going to take the under so that I could steal one here. I think Frank's going to be over. I do. He had 8 in 2019 when he played in 14 games and was clearly hurt last year. But by the way, the 206 pounds that Matty said, that is not official. So nobody take that and run with it. don't assume that that's true. But we do know that he weighed 220 in March due to police reports. So I think that it's going to be an over on this for all the reasons that Matty said. He's heavier. We know that. He's working better. I think that what they've done with the defensive end room right now tells you that they believe that Frank Clark is going to be there all year long and from the get-go. So I think that we're going to see the best version of Frank Clark that we've seen, playing with power, playing through the tackle, much like Chris Jones is going to do opposite of him. Sacks are hard, but I do think that he's going to be able to get above this number.
Unofficially, my stance is a push because this is the only one. This is the only prop bet that a push can actually occur because you can have a half sack. But I think I'll take the over barely. Chris Jones leading the league in sacks 40-1. Whoo, baby. This, you know what? I don't hate it. I don't hate it. This dude, I think Chris Jones is primed to have a career. I really do. We've been talking about it a lot. This is him being put in a situation where he is, his skill set's best utilized. He's, playing a little bit outside. He looks better rushing outside than we thought maybe early on. But he's still a guy that's absolutely dominant along the interior. It's just, maybe he's playing a little bit more to his strengths on early downs, and the Chiefs are playing to what Steve Spagnuolo prefers, with some density in the middle of their defense and some more, run stopping capabilities along the interior. This is a prime situation for Chris Jones to step in and dominate. And it would not stun me if this man wound up leading the league in sacks, because I think he's about to have a career year.
The list of people that Bovada has above Chris Jones is frankly shocking. It really is to me, with the way that he's played in the past, with his ability to get to the quarterback, and without the Chiefs having somebody that's a speed rusher that's going to win quickly. Like, Chris Jones is going to get the same number of these sort of late in the drop sacks as the rest of the guys, because he's got just as much quickness to the quarterback as arguably anybody else on this defensive line. So from that perspective, playing well at defensive end, still kicking inside to defensive tackle and the dime, you're going to get the best of both worlds for Chris Jones. I think he takes this. I am willing to throw down money on this bet because I believe that strongly that Chris Jones is going to go out and have the best year of his life, which will lead the NFL in sacks.
I think it's hard to bet on a singular player versus the field for something, especially when it comes to sacks. I think if you look over the last 5 years of players leading the league in sacks, it's Aaron Donald and it's speed rushers off the edge. I mean, it's Vic Beasley, Shaq Barrett's got his in there, Chandler Jones. So you're either looking at speed rushers off the edge or Aaron Donald. In those 5 years, the least amount of sacks you could have to lead the league, 16. Some years you need 19 or 20. So it's going to be really hard. I get why the odds on this are so good, because the guys that lead the league in sacks generally are the best defender I've ever seen play football on Aaron Donald, or a guy that's the quick speed rusher off the edge that can just get into that sack in under 2 seconds when he's not touched. I would have a hard time actually placing money on this. I do think the odds are stacked against a rusher like Chris Jones. No matter how good he'll be, I think the odds are stacked against him for leading the league in sacks.
All right, piggybacking. Go.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. I was
going
to say, before we go on, we got a question here in the chat from Jeremy Green. So you're saying the defense is going to have 45 sacks? I mean, that's what they had in 2019. Do we believe this defensive line is better than the defensive line that they had in 2019? I mean, Frank Clark,
absolutely.
If he's healthy, yes, I absolutely believe that to be the case.
I don't think that's that wild of a number.
Sack Nation's alive and well. This is going to be a fun year. Ooh, guys, we made it. Oh, I just remembered.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, the Steelers last year, 56 sacks. So, Chris Jones, Frank Clark, Jaron Reed, Tershawn Wharton, I'm putting him in there. And plus Steve Spagnuolo's ability to blitz, coming up with 11 less sacks than that seems very, very plausible this year to me.
Plus an extra game.
Yep.
We don't need Chris Jones, defensive player of the year, 50-1. I mean, we got to be at least thinking about that too in the same vein.
I am. I mean, if he leads the league in sacks and does it at 2 positions, you're giving it to him the same way that you've given it to J.J. Watt in the past, for moving around the defensive line, winning in multiple ways. Yes, absolutely. I believe in that as strongly as I believe that he's going to lead the league in sacks.
So I just got done saying I don't like taking players versus the field for stuff. I don't agree when it comes to defensive player of the year and Chris Jones. I've been banging this drum for a couple weeks now. As soon as I saw it, coming out of camp and I saw that first preseason game, I said, no, go. I told people, go, if you place money on stuff, go do it. Chris Jones, defensive player of the year. You're still getting good odds now. It's dropped even a little bit because I think everybody's seen how good he's looked. This one I would take, because even if he doesn't lead the league in sacks, there's going to be there's voter fatigue. People are tired of voting for Aaron Donald to be the defensive player of the year. I mean, it just happens. It happens to all the great players. People are tired. So if you get Chris Jones just competing for the sack league and lead on the year, and people are noticing his name because he's playing a new position, because he's on a team that's finishing first in the AFC, That gets a lot of attention. I think he's going to play great. Multiple positions, position change. The storylines are all there. I would actually place money on that bet if I was a betting person.
All right. Chiefs 30.5 points per game, over under. Give me the over. It's tight. I think this is going to be an efficient monster of a football team. I think this is the best team we've seen in the last 3 years. I think this is the most complete group. There are some traits in here that are absolutely dominant and terrifying for the rest of the National Football League. I think this is going to be an efficient monster, an absolute buzzsaw. And that should answer one of the questions we're going to have here in a second. But yes, give me the 30.5 points per game. Yes.
I'm going to take the under, but just barely.
Ooh.
But yeah, defense guy. Special
defense guy. I think the defense is going to step up. And like I said earlier, I think we're going to see the offense close out some games, play a little more ball control, and, maybe settle for some late field goals when they've run an 8-minute drive at the end of the game to kind of close this thing out. So I think that the points will be just a little bit down, but it's not really going to matter. It's not going to affect the win-loss total.
They hit 29.5 points last year, and I don't know about you guys, but I never felt like the offense was like hardly ever clicking on all cylinders, especially that offensive line. You make the offensive line better. You get a team that's focusing on moving the ball down the field a little bit more and not just playing for the home runs. I think they are definitely go over 30.5 here.
All right, last one. Wins. The over-under set at 12.5 wins. Matthew, what you got?
So I think on the surface, this line seems kind of silly because you're just thinking the Chiefs back-to-back Super Bowls. They were 5 inches away from being into 3 Super Bowls in a row. Only winning 12 games seems kind of wild. But you look at it, last year was the only year, while Patrick Mahomes is starting, that they've won over 12 games. They've been right at 12 the 2 years before that. I mean, they have not been consistently landing over 12 games. Yes, the extra game helps. That probably pushes them over the edge in those 2 other 12-game win seasons right on the dot. I just think the team's better this year. I think from top to bottom, it's better than last year, and they won 14 games last year. Maybe they don't win 14 again, but there's no chance I could place a bet on them winning under 13.
Listen, I get it. I really do. The schedule is stacked. It really is. There's a lot of really good teams. As we did our offseason previews,
good thing we played the Raiders twice.
Yeah, that's true. Good. I said it time and time again. There's a lot of quality teams, and the NFL is starting to catch up a little bit. And if this offensive line doesn't click from the get-go, there could be some games that are dropped. So I get this line. I completely understand this line. That said, it's also way too low. Way over.
If you gave me over under 12.5 wins in the first 13 games of the season, I'd take the over. Rant might come out a little bit.
Strong for a guy that hates Kelce.
Rant might be coming out a little bit tonight. Look, this football team I'm so excited to watch what this football team is about to do in the National Football League, because this group has traits for days. They've got an elite defensive line, the best defensive line I've seen in a while. They've overhauled and aggressively corrected the offensive line, which was the only reason that game got ugly in the Super Bowl. If they had this offensive line in that Super Bowl, the Chiefs would be talking about going for a three-peat right now. They aggressively fixed the problem that kept them from winning the Super Bowl. This team is on a mission. They are angry. They have the best player in the world who takes everything personally, who's a maniac, and who's going to go out of his way to make sure that what happened in Tampa doesn't happen again. This team is not going to let some Raiders game happen again, where they just sleepwalk through a game and get bopped and have someone drive around their stadium. This is going to be the Patrick Mahomes revenge tour. He is going scorched earth. It's going to be terrifying to watch. And we'll be talking about this season for years to come. And we will preview the first game of this season on Wednesday nights. Cannot wait. The season's here. Chiefs-Browns is on Sunday. We are so excited to be covering it here at KC Sports Network. We made it, friends. The run it back, the take it back tour starts tonight.
Get him, Rant. Get him.
Let's go. Well, we're literally going to go. That's going to do it for the KC Laboratory. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back later in the week. Be sure to catch everything happening on KC Sports Network. We'll catch you later.